But what is the current situation in Uganda regarding Robert Kyagulanyi, otherwise known as Bobby Wine?
Well, it's very simple. The man who is not elected but continues to present himself as president, Museveni, has a son who is taking pride in having murdered many members of the party that President Wine heads.
And Bobby Wine came out saying that he escaped from his house when security forces came there, and that his response or his statements are not credible. So why should people believe that his life is in danger? They argue. Your take?
Look, let's be really clear. Mm-hmm. They shot his bodyguard in Arua. They shot the gatekeeper in Kampala. They've admitted to killing many of the members of his party. It is not a stretch to talk.
Isn't it funny? And that's what I've seen from many Museveni lackeys in Uganda on social media and on mainstream media. They say nobody's looking for Bobby Wine. But up to now, the military is surrounding Bobby Wine's home.
All you have to do is watch how, I call them a militia, I don't call them police, mm-hmm. how they've harassed and brutalized the people of Uganda mm-hmm. who came out time after time to express their support for Bobby Wine, how they were gassed, mm-hmm. how their ability to exercise their democratic rights mm-hmm. were restricted illegally and unlawfully by a thugocracy.
Thank you. He finally said it. By a thugocracy. This is a government ruled by thugs and criminals. It is a regime that uses intimidation, that uses coercion, a regime that uses corruption, that thrives on dominating people by force. It is a thugocracy of Museveni. Thank you.
Uganda is a thugocracy. There is nothing, there's no word for what's going on in Uganda today other than a disgrace.
Thank you.
You're watching Mordecai Marissa Live Political Commentary. Please consider subscribing to help grow Uganda's Voices of Struggle ecosystem. Thank you.
I cannot appreciate you enough for using your valuable time to always go on social media, break down things for people.
And yes, indeed, presenting to you from these United States of America, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're watching me and at whatever time you might watch this conversation. My name is Mordecai Murisa, and you're welcome to Mordecai Murisa Live. Exactly. I should probably announce one more time. Thank you so much for the prayers. I've been really sick, but I've been able to fight my way through, and I think I'm on a journey to complete recovery. So thank you so much for the wishes. Thank you so much for the prayers as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we continue to follow the events in our country shortly after the rigging of the 2026 presidential election by the Museveni regime. Of course, helped by his minions and lackeys and institutions he personalized. Tonight, we're going to be looking at commentaries from a one Robert Amsterdam, an international lawyer, US-based, who was banned or barred from Uganda. I listened to Robert Amsterdam because of his knowledge about the workings of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, his understanding of the geopolitics and regional politics of Uganda. I think I would argue and say he's one of the few people I've seen that have been able to diagnose the cancerous regime of Museveni and given us the prescription of how to get rid of this cancerous or virus within us in the Museveni regime. That's what we're going to be looking at tonight. He's Robert Amsterdam. He's an international lawyer. This is him on Piers Morgan Live. Piers Morgan Uncensored, not live. That's Mordecai Murisa Live. Yeah, Piers Morgan Uncensored. And then I think it was recently, he was hosted by Tucker Carlson.
What is the latest you have been
about the Ukraine war?
The defender of the church in Ukraine, the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, which is under almost unbelievable persecution by the government with the help of the United States. Where are we now?
I want to be very clear.
Yeah, we're not going to go into that. I just wanted to show you. You get the gist here where I'm trying to. I was trying to show you so that you might be familiar with the gentleman. He's quite helped a number of Africans who are trying to fight for, democracy, the rule of law, the respect to human rights and stuff like that. So he was interviewed recently on a platform called Africa Thinks, where he talks about the Museveni regime. I think everything he says here is 100% true. We're going to go on and listen in, and then I'll give my commentary. Listen here. What an amazing.
Hi, Mr. Robert Amsterdam. Welcome to Africa Thinks. Today we'll be looking at the circumstances occurring or that occurred during the recent elections in Uganda and Tanzania. East Africa particularly, we heard reports that Bobby Wine, Robert Kyagulanyi, your client, is in a bit of a trouble as...
I think I forgot to mention, he's a lawyer to Bobby Wine. That's why this gentleman addresses him. Bobby Wine, your client.
Threats are being hurled towards his way. However, the government denies that he is in trouble. You have defended Robert Kyagulanyi and you provide legal advice for him for a long time. But what is the current situation in Uganda regarding Robert Kyagulanyi, otherwise known as Bobby Wine?
Well, it's very simple. The man who is not elected but continues to present himself as president, Museveni, has a son who is taking pride in having murdered many members of the party that President Wine heads, and has extended himself to a large number of threats involving loss of life. As you are aware, I defended Bobby when he was illegally taken in Arua years and years ago, and was with him, was able to free him from torture and get him medical help in the United States, and brave beyond brave is what I can say about this man, who is risking his life for the people of Uganda. And as you know, 70% of the populace is under 17, and there is no question as to who won this last election.
Well, but Mr. Amsterdam, some of Bobby Wine's critics say that there were reports in the international media that he has been arrested by the police or the UPDF, the National Army of Uganda. However, the UPDF and the police came out saying that they have not actually arrested or kidnapped him. And Bobby Wine came out saying that he escaped from his house when security forces came there, and that his response or his statements are not credible. So why should people believe that his life is in danger? They argue. Your take?
Look, let's be really clear. They shot his bodyguard in Arua. They shot the gatekeeper in Kampala. They've admitted to killing many of the members of his party. It is not a stretch to talk.
Isn't it funny? And that's what I've seen from many Museveni lackeys in Uganda on social media and on mainstream media. They say nobody's looking for Bobby Wine. But up to now, the military is surrounding Bobby Wine's home. They've placed his wife under house arrest since the election day. But they say Bobby Wine is safe. It is not a stretch. I don't know. Where do they choose to collectively suspend reason and logic and be like, okay, we're going to make sure that we ignore. We saw the lawlessness, the injustices meted onto Bobby Wine and his supporters during the campaign. Let's ignore that. Bobby Wine is safe. Are you kidding me?
Talk about the risk that Mr. Wine is in. All you have to do is watch how, I call them a militia, I don't call them police, how they've harassed and brutalized the people of Uganda who came out time after time to express their support for Bobby Wine, how they were gassed, how their ability to exercise their democratic rights were restricted illegally and unlawfully by a thugocracy.
Thank you. He finally said it. By a thugocracy. This is a government ruled by thugs and criminals. It is a regime that uses intimidation, that uses coercion, a regime that uses corruption, that thrives on dominating people by force. It is a thugocracy of Museveni. Thank you.
Uganda is a thugocracy. There is nothing. There's no word for what's going on in Uganda today other than a disgrace.
Thank you. There's nothing. I mean, criminality or lawlessness and the Museveni government are interwoven as the act of selling with the act of buying. You cannot separate criminality and Museveni. They're interwoven, like the act of buying and the act of selling. If you're going to sell, there's going to be a buyer. If you're going to buy, there's going to be a seller. So if you're going to be Museveni, there's going to be a criminal. If you're going to be a criminal, you're going to be a Museveni or a Museveni simp.
And it's a barefaced thugocracy that the United States and every civilized nation should condemn.
Yep.
And Bobby Wine's safety, after having won that election, should be paramount in the minds of foreigners, especially foreign donors or those countries that work with Uganda.
Well, your law firm.
You know, let me give a comment here. It is really sad, and it tells you, you know, there's that quote. I might poorly paraphrase this one, but it says, "I'm afraid we might be living in another planet is hell." And I think the world, you can sort of come to believe that quote, that the U.S., as a result of the fact that the world is full of dictators, thugs, and criminals leading countries where you have like Museveni, who came to power through killing people, and he's continued his firm grip on power by doing the same. They're afraid that probably if he leaves power, one who might replace him might even be worse. So they end up working with him. Isn't this hell? That they know that Museveni is so bad that they look at if he really left power. And sometimes I really try to understand them, because Museveni wants to leave power and be replaced by his own son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is boasting about killing, abducting, torturing people.
AP partners came up with a press release a few moments ago calling on the international community to ensure Bobby Wine's protection. But some of his critics are saying that it's neither here nor there, and it's calculated to tarnish the image of Uganda both locally and internationally.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I don't need to tarnish Uganda's image. They do it for themselves and very well. Just look at the statements that have been made by Museveni's son.
Yeah.
I mean, just take a look at what he said, and I can quote this purported general. If he doesn't surrender
purported general
to the police, we will treat him as a rebel and handle him accordingly. Personally, I'm embarrassed by our record. 22 protesters killed in 1 week is too low. I promise to do better. Are you kidding me?
Well, this is a longer conversation where Robert Amsterdam, an international lawyer and a lawyer to Bobby Wine, continues to expose the lawlessness and impunity of the Museveni regime, as he calls it for what it is, a thugocracy. This and more on my YouTube channel, Mordecai Morisa Live. See you there.
Did you enjoy what you just watched?
I'm sure they did.
I'm going to guess that you did. How about you consider subscribing to Mordecai Morisa Live YouTube channel? Thank you.